Good evening. Good evening.
Good evening.
How'd your day go today?
Good.
Okay, that's good.
Yeah. It wasn't too busy.
Yeah.
Got 2 naps today. Well, the baby got
Yes.
2 naps today.
River got 2 naps.
Yeah.
Yes, that's
We
great.
got to go to the library. He had a lot
yeah.
of fun. He loves the library.
That's amazing. That's amazing. He gets to have a lot of fun with those books in there.
He loves books.
Yeah, even though, he makes a lot of noise and stuff, but I
But
think
today the
that's...
lady was so sweet. She was
Yeah.
like, they're under 2. They're supposed to make noise.
Yeah.
So it was very welcoming. She
That's
called
good.
it Not Your Mother's Library. It was so funny.
Not your mother's library.
Yeah.
That's
So you
funny.
can be loud.
Be loud, have
Yeah,
fun, get
she
to
was
look
so
at the
sweet.
books. That's good, yeah. But yeah, we're going to talk about our birth story. This is specifically
Yeah.
your birth story. I just was there, happy to support, and but
I guess it was River's birth story.
You know what? My bad.
And my labor story.
That's
Yeah.
right.
I guess so.
Yeah,
Yeah.
your labor story, River's birth
River's
story.
birth story.
And then one day maybe he'll give us his perspective on that. On that day.
Felt like it was cold
I know, right?
and
but-
bright.
Oh my goodness.
So funny.
Yeah. Okay, so with your labor, what was it like?
Now we're going to start from the beginning.
Okay, from the beginning. Yeah, you take the lead.
Yeah. Well, I just wanted to touch on just like when we found out that I was pregnant.
Mm-hmm.
It was a surprise.
Yes.
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 It was a surprise. Looking back, I'm grateful that like the Lord let us get pregnant at all,
Right.
and let alone pretty easy.
Yep.
That's a blessing in
Yeah,
itself,
absolutely.
looking back now. In the moment, I was very scared. And you were very scared too. You were doing
I was.
push-ups.
Yeah, it was.
You were so nervous.
I don't know what we were gonna do.
Yeah. It was so funny. I think it was just such a shock because we never, well, we talked about if we wanted kids, and we were both, I'd say at that point we were okay if we could have kids, that'd be great. If not,
Yeah.
then that was okay too.
Right.
We weren't really hard pressed to have children, maybe at all, but I guess the goal was to start thinking about kids when we turned 30.
Yeah.
And that happened like 4 years earlier. We were 26.
It
So
did. It did.
that was fun. But yeah, I think we just weren't typically those people who were so focused on like, I want kids and I want kids. I didn't even really grow up thinking like that.
Yeah.
That I wanted to have lots of kids. I mean, I had like a few little kid names that I thought about when I was with my friends growing up, but it wasn't anything serious. And I never had this longing or urge to, like, I've always wanted to be a mom.
Right.
I didn't hate children or anything like that either.
Right.
But I think when we got older, we just were, I wouldn't say indifferent, but we were kind of open to, if it didn't happen, it wasn't like a make or break situation for our marriage.
Yeah.
But we did end up getting pregnant, which was great. We were nervous. We were also moving.
Yeah.
We found out, so that was a lot to handle. But it ended up being fine. I had a great pregnancy, thank God.
Yes.
Everything was moving accordingly. Baby was very healthy. I was healthy.
Yes.
He was growing pretty much right on his week. So when they measure your bump,
Right.
the amount of centimeters it is supposed to correlate with the week that you're in. And he was always like right on the dot. So that was fun.
Yeah, he was on schedule.
Yeah. And
Yes.
everybody was so happy and supportive, and it was nice to have that.
Yeah, it was really nice to have that. And I really wasn't expecting that on my end, for you to be pregnant and for us to be where we are even today. So yeah, I'm happy where we are now and happy everything worked out. But yeah, so after we moved, you were still pregnant,
Yeah.
driving down the road. I'm in a U-Haul. You're driving the car.
Yeah.
Down.
That was pretty early on. It was like a month or two.
Yeah. So then we end up where we are now. And Dad, take us from there. What else was happening to you?
Well, I was sick even into my second trimester, so I thought it was going to end after the first trimester. It did not. So maybe into the halfway mark, my second, I was still feeling pretty nauseous, and my sense of smell was very sensitive. I had to like plug my nose when we would walk around because it would make me gag the slightest scent. It was also difficult seeing your body kind of change. That was a little jarring. I mean, I know there's a baby in there, so, it's a little different, but it's also your body is turning into something you've never seen before. So it makes you a little nervous. And then you start feeling the kicks, and it's very sweet, and it's such an interesting feeling. I know people used to try to describe it to me, but it's really hard to describe it unless you've experienced it, and it's such a special feeling. I honestly really miss the kicks inside, but they did end up getting stronger, kicking me in the ribs, kicking me in the stomach. He was very active, and he still is, so I've always heard, like, however they are in the womb is usually how they're going to be outside the womb. When we found out we were having a boy, that was really fun. It was just you and me that found out. We took the blood test, and we just got the results, and then we just opened him. And we were like,
That's right.
It's a boy.
Yeah, I didn't want to wait for a surprise later.
Yeah, no, I'm so impatient. I was like, I need to know right this second. And then we just called people and told them.
Yes.
But yeah, then we had a really great baby shower.
Yeah, it was amazing.
People were so giving and so kind, and supportive, and we really appreciated that.
Yes.
There was so much love, and they were all just so happy for us.
Yeah, they really were. Yeah.
And then we can just get right into labor story. I didn't want to talk too much about pregnancy and stuff, but it was so funny because I had made it to my 39th week, and that's when they start talking to you about, plans, stuff like that. And then she mentioned, possible induction. Everything was going fine, so there wasn't an alarming, thing to get induced. I personally didn't want to get induced if I didn't have to. So she was like, okay, well, just wait until you hit 40 weeks, and then we'll have another conversation. And so I did. I hit 40 weeks on a Wednesday, which was my actual due. So what was that, November 9th?
Yes.
No, 8th. November 8th was my due date.
That's right. It was your due date.
Yeah, November 9th. 8th was my due date.
Yeah.
So I had my 40-week appointment, and I said, no, I'm still going to just wait it out. They said, okay, but if you hit 41, then we're definitely going to have to start talking about induction. And we were praying that I didn't have to be induced, and that I would just labor spontaneously. And so then we started walking the next day.
Yes.
Around the neighborhood, and we were like, let's go check the mail.
You check the mail.
So we did.
Yep.
And at this time, you're full-time employed, and I was self-employed, so I did my taxes a little differently. But we get a notice in the mail.
Yeah, we got a notice
from the IRS.
From the IRS
saying we owe like over $10,000. I was so nervous.
10,000.
My heart dropped to my stomach. And this was after I'd already paid my self-employment taxes already. So that shouldn't have came in the mail.
Exactly.
So I was like, oh my gosh. I was so scared. But I was like, okay, well, there's nothing we can do right now. We'll call them later.
Yeah, we just have to call them, figure it out.
Yeah. So then we continue with the walk.
Yeah, we did.
I take like a couple more steps, and I have my first contraction.
That's when you had your first
The
contraction.
IRS put me in labor.
IRS.
The IRS.
They have no idea.
It was so crazy because I was feeling completely fine.
You were feeling
And then
fine.
I think I didn't notice it at first.
Yeah.
I thought it was just like a Braxton Hicks,
Right.
which is like a practice contraction, but they feel different. But this one actually hurt. Like
Right.
Braxton Hicks never made me like stop.
That's right.
And like
I remember.
bend over like, oh my gosh, my stomach hurts. But this one was like, yeah, this hurt. And
Yeah, that's
then
a real
it
deal.
kept happening as he walked. And I was like, oh my gosh, I think I'm contracting. But you don't start like worrying about that until they start getting closer. So they just happened every now and then. But I just think it's funny that the IRS kickstarted my
The
my
IRS did it.
contracting. Yeah.
Whew. I'm glad we got that figured out later. But
Yeah.
that was the first contraction that you had.
Yeah.
And so it begins.
On that walk, and then that's when it begins because they continue, and just like irregular and stuff here and there, and not as intense. And so that day goes by. So that's now Thursday, and then I think, yeah, then I sleep overnight. And I cannot sleep because the contractions are still starting. And looking back now, I wish I remembered, or I wish I had taken like an actual birthing class, because I was just, like squirming, all uncomfortable. I wish I would have known how to properly breathe, or how to stretch, maybe walk around, get on my bouncy ball, because I just didn't know how to handle them. They were just really painful. So I just
Right.
didn't sleep at all that night. Then the next day happens. They kind of stop for a bit. And so I'm able to go the rest of the day. So that's now Friday.
Yes.
Yeah,
Friday.
No, I think I got it mixed up.
Well, let me look at the calendar.
Yeah.
Because, hold on 1 second.
Yeah, because I'm thinking I'm getting my dates mixed up.
Yeah, we'll go back. November 2023.
No, I remember. I had my appointment. Oh,
You can take it. Just take it.
Oh, yeah.
That way you can see.
yeah. Exactly. Okay, so the day I had my appointment was the day we went to on our walk,
That's right.
because I had my appointment in the mornings. I would always schedule them at like 9 in the morning or something. So I had the appointment. Then later that day we went on the walk. So that was Wednesday. And then overnight that night I couldn't sleep because
Yes.
of the contractions. Then Thursday came
Right.
and they stopped for a bit, and then they came back.
They did.
They came back
Contractions came back.
later that evening. It was around like 5 or 6 p.m. And that's when they start getting really intense. And they're very painful.
Yeah.
I'm on like my bouncy ball.
Yeah.
And then you have to time them. I think the doctor said if they are 5 minutes apart,
Right. 5 minutes apart.
they last for 1 minute. And they continue for 1 hour.
Yes.
Consistently like that. That's when you're supposed to go into the hospital or call
Yes.
them to see if they have, a room. And so that's when it started. It started like 6,
Yes.
like on the dot, which is crazy. Because I remember I had the
Yes.
little app that you press the button when your contraction started. And it happened from 6 to 7. That's every 5 minutes I was contracting, and it hurt so
It did.
bad. And you were like, "Is it time to go? Is it time to go?"
I called
Yeah.
and there was a phone number we had on the fridge for
Yeah.
the doctors that you were going to.
It was like the after hours. number, yeah.
team. I was calling them and I was like, "Is this? We're tracking it here. We're trying to get this right." And they're like, "Okay, just breathe. Everything's gonna be all right." I'm like, so yeah, I was panicking.
And you were like tossing the rest of the stuff in the hospital bag. and
I was
everything.
I was like, you know what? I'm getting everything ready.
It was so funny.
I just started getting
while I
everything
was
ready.
contracting, you're like, okay, I'm just gonna start getting it ready.
Yep.
And what stinks is my mom was there, and she was just about to cook me dinner.
Oh, you didn't get to
I didn't get to eat dinner. So keep that in mind. She was about to make me some shrimp. And
After all the
that was
walking you were doing.
Yeah. And I did end up eating breakfast and lunch that Thursday, but I wasn't able to eat dinner, which was terrible. But we ended up being able to go to the hospital because they're like, okay, you're good to go. And so we're going to the hospital on Thursday evening, November 9th.
Yes.
And then we get there, and they were nice, but it's so weird when you get into, they call it the triage room. I have to get like an exam to see how far I'm dilated. And then while I'm like contracting on the table, you have to like sign all these documents.
Yeah, I had to sign a lot of documents because they wheeled in at the hospital we were at. They wheeled in on this monopod sort of a thing with wheels and with like an iPad at the top of this
like a monopod sort of screen.
And I had to go through and click a couple of things, acknowledgments, pay. I had to pay on this kiosk that they wheeled in, and I had to do a Zoom call on the kiosk with a rep.
Yeah.
I don't even know where the rep
it was weird.
from, and you're there
and
contracting.
I'm like contracting on the table,
and
those exams hurt really bad for me.
So exactly. So I don't know what I had to what I ended up signing, but I knew if I don't do this, and I asked a question, I was like, if I don't acknowledge this or sign this, will we be able to be admitted and deliver here? And I believe that the answer was no.
Yeah, it was like a no.
Yeah. If we wanted to continue, we had to go through the.
And it's so crazy that they do that because. Also, this is our first time ever doing this. We're first time parents, and you're probably just wondering how I'm doing. You just want to be focused on me. And they're like, please sign. And you can't even read. Like, how is anybody who's in labor or with their spouse in labor, how are you going to read all of that and let alone comprehend it? Like,
yeah, I couldn't comprehend all that. It was legal. It was pages of legal documents. Yeah.
It was like 8 p.m. by the time we got there.
8 p.m.
And, we're tired, we're hungry, and now you got to sign. It was so ridiculous. But they did that. I was already at like a 4 when I got there.
Yes.
I was dilated like 4 centimeters.
Yes.
Which is pretty good. Like, I thought I was going to be at like a 1 or 2 because I've heard horror stories about, you're only only that small dilated and they send you home or something. But thankfully I was at a 4, so I was able to get admitted pretty quickly and into my room. And we got to our room. My room was pretty big, so that was nice.
It was. And
I had you and my mom, and they were really nice enough to bring us another like reclining chair.
Yes.
For you guys, so you both could have a place to sleep. And then I get in the bed. They hook me up, give me the IV.
That's right.
That IV hurt. I'd say like that needle in the hand. It was right there in my hand vein. And I think it's probably gone now, but yeah, I had it right there in my hand vein, and it was painful, and it's in there. Yes. That IV stayed in there until I checked out. Yeah.
That's a long time.
Yeah, it was crazy. But it was fine. Then you were able to get me some water and some
ice
like
chips,
icy stuff.
Yeah, there was some icy like flavored.
Yeah, it was
ice.
like a lemon icy thing.
And I would get you ice water from the front.
Yeah,
where they had it.
I don't know how many times you filled up my water cup, but I don't know what it was. But labor seriously makes you thirsty. And then we had talks about, the midwife came in and she was like, okay, well, let us know if you want the epidural, if you need anything. I got the peanut ball that you put in between your knees. That helped a lot with getting him to move along and to get me to dilate more.
That's right.
And we were just praying. I had like the worship music
Yes.
was going. You had that going. You had the whole playlist ready.
Had the playlist, had the speaker.
Yep.
Ready.
It was great. And I would say the contractions were still pretty painful, but bearable at that time. Again, I was only at 4, but the cervical checks were incredibly painful for me, to the point where they couldn't even fully complete one. And looking back, I probably wouldn't have so many. I just wish they didn't have to give you so many.
Right.
But because they have to check somehow, I ended up getting the epidural because I just couldn't handle that pain. So I got it, between 4 and 6 centimeters.
Yeah.
That was terrifying. Getting
It was.
the epidural was so scary. Thankfully, you got to stay in the room because I heard some people, everybody has to leave except for the doctors, but you were able to stand and sit in front of me, I think. Yeah.
Yes.
And
was able
I
to sit in
held
front of
the
you.
pillow
You
and I
did?
curled over.
That's
it
right.
was just nerve-wracking because there's only 2 anesthesiologists
Yes.
and they work 12-hour shifts.
Where we were.
Yeah, where we were at. And that anesthesiologist, yeah. So they just rotated. And so I was just a little nervous because I'm like, well, you've been doing this for like 12 hours.
You could tell.
And
when she
you
came
could
in.
tell he was it the lady or the
It
man
was
first?
the lady first.
Yeah, it was the lady first.
That was the end of her shift for sure.
It
You could
was
tell.
the end of her
She
shift because it
different
was
the
like
next time we
late.
saw her.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then they said it's just going to feel like a bee sting. So they numb the area first. I think they numb it with a shot first before they do the big shot. And I have never been stung by a bee, so I didn't actually know what that felt like. But once they did the first prick, I like moved and I like shrieked a little, and they were like, "Do not do that again." I was like, "Oh my gosh," because you're not supposed to move at all, and so that was scary. And then they end up doing it, and then you feel really cool, like you feel like a cooling sensation because it's like going up your spine. But once that was done, I felt amazing. Like 20 minutes later, you relived it.
Everything. I must have blocked some things out.
I know.
I
What's
remembered
crazy is
everything
I
as
prayed
you were
before
explaining
this.
it.
I prayed before this, asking God to help me
Must have
remember
blocked
all
some
of
this
it.
out. I remember everything. I was literally
Yeah.
sitting there as you were detailing all that, and I'm pretty sure they explained beforehand that, the risk of paralyzation.
Yeah.
And these different things. So by the grace of God, you're here today.
Yeah.
As if nothing ever happened. So sorry, didn't mean to cut you off.
No.
Keep going.
Because when you do look back, you're like, dang, that was crazy.
Because I was in a mood.
You were so focused.
I was focused. I didn't faint. I didn't
No,
panic.
you did great.
Once we were in the hospital, I made sure that I remained calm and I
Yeah.
remained
You weren't lightheaded or
solid
nothing.
foundation for you because you were going through a lot.
Yeah.
But
you had the fan
on
and the water.
yeah, the fan
But
I
in the
like-
inside, you were,
on the now that we've left and now that we're out of it,
yeah.
I suppose how I actually felt then is how I really feel now.
Yeah.
So I'm a little lightheaded as you were explaining that because that actually did happen.
That did.
But in the moment, I was in it, so I
Yeah.
didn't. It was like nothing was phasing me at the time, so I was able to help you. But
That was amazing.
yeah,
you were
was
phenomenal the
thank
whole
you.
time.
Yeah, now that you're explaining
because I
that.
was so thirsty. I just remember you constantly bringing me water because I was so thirsty and hot.
So I see why they wouldn't let me sit back there. 'cause I
Yeah,
was
they
like,
don't like. Yeah, for that reason, they don't like to have people. Some people even in the room, and then some people you definitely can't look at it because
Nah.
it's pretty jarring.
Yeah.
I've heard. I didn't even bother to look up what the process was.
You did great. You did great. You did the whole time. You were going through a lot.
I was trying to stay very, very calm because that's all. Once you get in that moment, like once you're there, and there's like no going back. So you just have to constantly keep telling yourself, "This is happening, whether you like it or not," and you just gotta roll with it.
That's
You just
true.
gotta go with the flow
Yeah.
because labor does not care
doesn't.
if you want it to stop at all. So
That's the
you
truth.
know, it
right
just
there.
happens.
Yep.
And that's that. But so then I get the epidural, then, you can't feel anything, your legs and stuff, which also stinks. They have to give you a catheter.
Oh.
I was very nervous about that thing. I'm not going to explain what that is. I'm sure people can look it up.
That's
but
all right.
I did have to get a catheter. I didn't feel it or anything, so that was good. What else? So yeah, I guess I just continue progressing.
From there,
What happened after that?
you started. So at this point, now that you have had the epidural,
Yeah.
you begin to get a little lethargic, a little more lethargic as time goes
and
on.
tired.
You
Yeah.
hadn't eaten. You only had some ice chips and an icy and some water.
And by this time, it's like Friday now.
We're now into Friday at this
Yeah,
point.
and
You
I
got the
started-
epidural at around. So Thursday, we got there Thursday night.
Thursday at 7,
It was
yeah,
around 3 or 4 something in the morning.
Oh, okay.
Friday when you got the
Yeah.
epidural.
Okay.
Then after that, you began to got lethargic, and then you got the catheter. And during
Yeah.
this time, you had to start the process of laying on just one side
Oh,
because his
heart.
heart rate would start to drop if you were laying on your
Yeah.
back or if you were laying on your left
Well,
side.
Oh my
So
gosh.
you
yeah.
started the process of laying on your right side.
Yeah.
Because that's where his heart was able to keep going.
Yeah.
Yeah.
For me to continue progressing fine.
Right.
Yeah. They were also really sweet because I was progressing really well. Like, that was big answered prayer that we would just continue. I would continue to dilate. I think before I had to turn on my right side, they told me I was at a 6 and I was doing good. But then that's when his heart rate started to drip. And then they had to rush in
Yes.
and flip me upside down, like onto
Right.
my stomach, but like I was on all fours or something.
That's
and they
true.
had to lower the bed.
And they would adjust the bed
Yeah.
to see what angle would help his heart rate the best
yeah,
at the time.
and I had to get the oxygen mask.
Yep,
or
yep.
something.
yeah,
think
I
it was
had
oxygen.
I had the oxygen mask for you.
Yeah,
It
you
was
were
either
holding
me or
that.
it was one of the nurses that came in.
Yeah, I remember you being there
Yeah.
holding the mask because it came out of the cabinet where you were at. So yeah, then I had to have the mask, dip the bed, and that helped.
Yes.
But that had to happen twice or 3 times.
Let's say 3. I remember them coming in and out a
was a
lot of
few
times,
times,
but I
yeah.
hadn't slept. So
Where like the whole squad of people
Yes.
were like, all right, come in. And it
Yes.
was really nerve wracking. And by this point I had the epidural, so I couldn't even
couldn't walk around.
hold my legs or be that sturdy on my legs. So they had to help me stay up.
Yep.
And then that's when we officially were like, you have to stay on your right side for
That's
the
right.
rest of this.
That's right.
That was also very painful. I'd say that after a while, that was the most painful thing, even compared to contractions.
Right. Because Friday would have only made it. What date was that?
That was the 10th.
That's the 10th.
Yeah.
So we still had. So you keep going.
Yeah, that
only
was just the 10th. And, yeah, we stayed there. And I stayed there on my right side basically for hours and hours.
over.
Yeah.
It's been-
And they
it's been hours
kept
now.
coming in. They checked me because it was okay to do that because I had the epidural, it didn't hurt anymore. And I just remember that one time where I was on so much pain in my right side, which is crazy that I even felt that even with the epidural. So it must have been really painful
Yeah.
if I could feel it with it. And I was looking at the nurse all pitiful, and I was like, can I please just turn to the left side just for a second just to get some relief? And they're like, okay, just for a little bit. And they monitored him so heavily. They're like, okay,
Right.
turn her over. And then they let me know when I had to turn back because his heart rate was dipping. So that was pretty rough. And then I think they came in and checked me, and then I had gotten stuck at a 9 centimeter.
Yes.
And that's when, and I was stuck there for a little while.
You were stuck at 9 for an hour or so.
That's when they left, and me and my mom like started praying.
Yeah.
And like she was asking people, she was like texting your mom, because your mom, she was either in the waiting room or nearby somehow, or on standby at her house. And we were all just like praying that I would just progress, that I would get to 10 and like whatever, 100% effaced, I think.
I think that was the word.
Yeah, because you had to be 10 centimeters dilated, and your cervix had to be thin enough for the baby to come through.
Yes.
And so we were praying really hard, playing our worship music, and then the midwife came back in and said I was at a 10.
Yes.
And so that was an answered prayer, which was amazing. So I had made it all the way, and then we started practice pushing. So you came, held my leg. My mom came, held my other leg, and then I had to hold it too, even though I couldn't because they were so heavy. And I was so tired.
Did the best you could.
Then I started practice pushing, and I was doing that for a little while, not too long. Mm-hmm. And then that's when they come in.
Yeah.
And they were really kind about it too.
They were kind about it.
But they were like, his head is off to the side. Mm-hmm. And to this day, I wonder if it's because I was on my right side for so long.
I wonder that too.
I wonder, because I couldn't change positions. They always are like, it's good to change positions, probably to like wiggle them out of there.
Exactly.
But I was stuck on one side, and his head was like off to the side. So I wonder, gravity. Maybe.
Yeah.
But they told me that he's not coming out,
Yeah.
vaginally. So they had to consider a C-section. And once they said that, I got so scared, because I did not prepare for a C-section. In our baby class, they talked about it for just a little bit. They just showed you like what the process was, but nothing about like what the process is, what happens when you get in there, recovery. What happens afterwards, like how to take care of your scar, like any of that. So I was really nervous, because obviously when you hear C-section, that means major abdominal surgery. And I had never had surgery besides my wisdom teeth, but nothing major. So I was really scared. And then I told them that I just want to try for a little bit longer, just to see. And they honored that. And then they came back and said that you haven't made any progress. And then that's when we just had to accept that the C-section would be the best option.
Yep.
Especially with his heart rate dipping.
Yeah, it was dipping at that point too.
And he couldn't stay in there for that long, because I think he was starting to get stuck a little. Mm-hmm. In like the bone area, I think.
In your hip socket of some kind.
It was something.
Yeah.
But he was starting to get stuck. His heart rate was going down, so it had to be an emergency C-section, because like basically once I said, all right, that's when they immediately like got my hairnet on and everything ready for the surgery. And then they wheel me in, but you can't come in there right away. They have to like prep me.
Yeah, so I came down the hallway with you.
Yeah.
And from there, then they gave me a suit to put on. So they have some sort of like a hazmat-esque suit like where we were. And then from there, they had a chair. I just sat outside of the door where you were. Mm-hmm. And then they were helping you to get ready for the surgery.
But what were you feeling like waiting out there?
Yeah, for me, at that moment,
like, I guess once they told me I had to have a C-section, like, what were you thinking? Up until
at that moment, it was, everything was just up to the Lord at that point. Yeah. Everything was completely out of my control. I was happy that I could at least be there. Mm-hmm. I could at least be right outside the room and walk down there with you. That helped a lot. But at that point, it was completely out of my control. And I just had to have faith in the Lord and hope and pray that the skill set of all the doctors and nurses are well aware of what they're doing. They're not sleepy or tired. And I was just praying for you, praying for the situation as a whole, asking God to help me, just help you. And it was just, I can't remember everything. I probably was speaking in tongues at some point. It was just a blur. I just closed my eyes and was just praying outside the room, really. So,
yeah.
Yep.
I think once they told me that, basically the second they had started prepping me for the surgery, I think I had disassociated myself from what was happening. Just because, once you're scared but there's nothing you can do about it, I think the body just does that to protect you from going hysterical. There were so many people in that room, and they all technically introduced themselves to me, but they have to go really quick because obviously it's an emergency C-section. Then they said that it was a good thing that I did get the epidural, because that way it was pretty easy to start the anesthesia for the C-section. Because then if I didn't, they would have had to give me like a spinal tap, which would have been more difficult, I think. So that was a good blessing that I didn't realize in the moment. So I'm glad that worked out. And then they do the test. They like poke you with like a needle or something, to see if you can feel anything, and then they poke you like all around to make sure that you can tell where the numbness starts. So they take a good amount of time to make sure that you obviously can't feel anything.
Right.
So that's amazing. So I didn't feel a thing. All I felt was like they were moving me, but it just felt like someone just doing that. And again, like I'm just sort of disassociating myself, like this is actually happening. I'm in this room. Then you were able to come in once they had gotten started, and once they put the curtain up, then you could come in.
That's when they let me come in. Yeah.
And then the surgery, getting him out was pretty quick.
Yes.
I think. Yeah, they make the incision, and then that only took like a few minutes.
Yeah.
From when they started until we heard him start crying.
Yes.
They let you look
they
at
did.
them pulling him up.
Yeah.
And then you saw him go onto the table and get like cleaned up and stuff.
Yeah, I did. Yeah, I did see that. And I gotta get the picture where I could. And
well, they took your phone and took some pictures for you, I think, right? Or did you take those?
I got to take the pictures.
Oh, you took those. Yeah. Okay.
Just right when he was there, when he was coming to.
Yeah.
So
he was so calm.
Yeah.
At least in the pictures, after he stopped crying.
Yeah, he was calm afterwards. After he cried for just a second when he came out, and then they had to get him because he wasn't doing anything at first.
Yeah.
It took them like 30 seconds, I think, maybe. And
they said he was just like a little stunned.
Yeah.
Yeah, by what was happening.
Yep. And then after that, when they wrapped him in the bassinet or the blanket, then they gave him to me. He was just
swaddle,
looking around, and then we were both there with you.
Yeah. Then you were holding him while they were stitching me back up.
Yes.
And then I was going kind of in and out because of the anesthesia is making me kind of tired.
Yes. I was happy because you were very cold, and I didn't know that they even had some sort of blanket, but one of the nurses did bring warm towels or warm weighted towel blankets, so they did put those across your arms.
They did?
Point. Yeah. So I was happy that they had that because you were. I
was kind of cold. It was just because it was a cold hospital room, or?
I don't want to be too graphic with my words.
Okay.
So I'm just trying to find a way to.
I mean, you can be honest.
Yeah, you were.
Because I don't remember.
Yeah, you were very cold, even to the touch on your hand.
Really?
Yeah, very cold. Not ice cold like it hurts, but just cold.
Noticeably cold.
Yeah, as in you need something to help you not be that cold, it wouldn't
Yeah.
be good for you for very long. You were, of course, you're flush, so your skin is much more pale. We also have been inside for over 48 hours at this point. And
No, not yet. It was
yet.
over 24 hours.
it was over 24 hours. And then at this point,
No, it was over 30 hours.
by the time we're in the C-section room,
Yeah.
it was over 30 hours that we've been inside. And you were just a little paler, a little flusher, especially because it's during a surgery, so it makes sense as well.
Yeah, because we had, I'm sorry, just to go back really quick.
Yeah.
We had made it all the way through Friday,
Yes.
most of Saturday, and now we are at 11, almost 11:30 at
11:30
p.m.
p.m.
Saturday.
Saturday.
Yeah.
The 11th.
The
That's
11th.
Right. That's right.
And that's when, because we had started at 7 p.m. Thursday.
7 p.m. Thursday.
Yeah. Had him
Had him
at
at
11:20 p.m.
Saturday.
So that was like
Right.
over. Oh my gosh, it was over 48 hours.
Yeah. And for me, I had never been that close to someone going through an intense surgery. So seeing you, I was talking with you, trying to keep you here and keep you up, too. And of course you had the anesthesia, so of course you're going to go in and out.
Yeah.
But it was jarring for me to see you out talking
Yeah.
and then completely not there anymore, and then kind of there, seeing like, oh, there, that, and then not there anymore. So that was difficult. That was challenging for me to see that. Mm-hmm. In that moment, I didn't know what was going to happen, to be honest. If you were going to make it through that, or exactly what would happen. I wasn't sure. I just knew that everything's up to the Lord.
I mean, I didn't either.
And I wasn't sure because
Yeah.
we'd been in there for so long at that point, and that
Yeah.
was an intensive surgery. And they all did a great job. So I was just
Yeah,
happy to
they
go back
did.
to end my little point here, and I'll let you keep going.
No, it's okay.
That it was just nice that one of the nurses that was there helping you, brought the warm towels after you were shaking really violently on
Yeah.
the table when you were really, really cold. So that was at least that did help. So that was nice. I didn't even know you could request that. I would have asked for that.
I didn't
immediately.
know. I didn't even notice I was cold. I don't think. I was
Yeah.
so just like out of it. And
Yeah.
I do remember just being in and out. But yeah, I didn't know if I was going to make it. I think everybody sort of has that thought when they go into labor, just the like, what if? And I had always had that conversation with you when I found out I was pregnant. Like, personally, if it
Right.
came down to it, I would rather you save River.
Right.
Obviously, the main goal would be to save us both, but if it was an either or, I just always felt a very strong conviction of, you just save the baby. And I don't know if I'm not going to say it's every mom, but I know for me it was like, it felt very like maternal of, it wasn't even like a question of like save me or the baby. It was, but I knew that I would have to tell you that, because I think for like husbands, obviously they're probably like, I would want to save my wife.
Right.
But I just remember having the comparison of like Jesus,
Yes.
of him being willing to sacrifice himself for us, even though, and that was a situation where we didn't even deserve it. We weren't innocent. So
Yeah.
like this mirroring of motherhood and labor and birthing a child, it's like, well, that child is innocent. So if Jesus can die for someone who is not innocent, it was just like so easy to be like, well, I am willing to die for this innocent child. Like, that's just like, that must just be my calling. And
Right.
I have talked to other people and they felt the same way, where it's like, you just don't even think about it. It's like, yeah, this child didn't deserve, this situation, didn't ask to be in this situation.
Right.
And I always wanted to have the mindset of like in my motherhood, I wanted to represent Jesus, mirror Jesus. So if it had to be in a situation where I had to mirror Jesus in his sacrifice, then that's just what it was going to be. Because I personally could not go to heaven and be like, yes, Jesus, you died for me, a sinner, and I wasn't willing to die for this innocent child. I don't know. That's just how I felt about it.
I see exactly what you mean.
So yeah, I communicated that to you.
And physically, you represented that as well because of how they conducted the surgery where we were.
Yeah.
Physically, your body was laid out in the form of a cross.
It was. Your legs
arms were out.
Are straight down on the
legs
table.
Are straight down.
Arms are out onto your sides.
That's right. So
and that ended up being a very redeeming part of the whole surgery because after all of this, I was very angry. Mm-hmm. I was not in a good space at all. I was grateful that we both made it out safely.
Yes.
That River was healthy. I was so happy to see him. And it wasn't anything about him or anything like that. I was angry because everything else got answered except for the idea in my head that I thought I needed to deliver vaginally instead of a C-section. Were you about to say something?
Even the team in there, they also, thank the Lord for the team too, that was there. All those different shifts, we went to a lot of different people. And even then the gentleman who was helping us, he was talking about his kids, and I was telling him the name of our son and the biblical meaning behind it, and he was like, oh, that's great, because his children, he's like, I can't remember exactly what names he said, but he was like,
was it Elisha?
It might have been Elisha, or it may have been John, or
it was
Luke.
A biblical name,
but he was like, and then here's it is in the Bible, and I was like, that was just confirmation for me, that no matter where you go, there are always people who love the Lord Jesus Christ, no matter where you go. And it was just nice to have that encouragement from somebody else, because a lot of the people in there had kids too.
Yeah, they did.
They were helping you, the nurses and doctors.
Yeah, and they ended up telling me that it went well, that everything went perfectly fine. And
yes.
I knew all of this, and it was just so, I think you're just going through so much postpartum. Like, you have a baby, but like your body isn't the same physically. You're not mentally the same or emotionally. It's just a lot to take in. And I had the shakes. Those are really bad. But my mom was so sweet. She gave me like a bear hug kind of situation.
And this is after
This is after. Yes, we're done with the surgery.
Done with the surgery.
They gave me River.
Yes.
And wheel us both back into the recovery room.
That's right.
And then I can't stop shaking though, and I was scared that I was gonna, that he was gonna get hurt.
Right.
So I think I give him to you.
Yep.
And then my mom, she just comes and like lays on top of me as like a weighted blanket situation, and that helped calm all of my shakes, which was really sweet.
Yeah.
So, mom hugs.
Mom hugs.
Yeah. So then they let me stay in there just for a little bit before they wheel us into our postpartum room.
Yep.
So we do that. I'm getting very, very hot now because it's so crazy that I was like cold in there, because all I remember is being like sweltering hot because they put all those blankets on me in my bed that they're wheeling me in.
Right.
And I'm like, I just need people to take these off. So they take the blankets off once we get to the room. And then we're just in there recovering. Then we attempt feeding River because he's obviously hungry.
Yes.
Were you about to say something?
The in between, when you're in the room, the nurse comes in eventually and asks if he wants sugar water, and then does like a small checkup on him, make sure everything's okay.
Yes.
And then after that,
like weighs him.
Then we tried the feeding.
You're right. Did they feed? I feed him in that room or the other room?
No.
I didn't start feeding him until he got...
That's right. We were downstairs.
Yeah.
Nurse comes in to check on us, make sure everything's going okay with River and everything.
Yeah.
After about an hour, maybe like 45 minutes to an hour.
Yeah.
They get everything. We pack up all of our stuff, and they take us up to where we stayed.
Yeah.
The small room.
Our postpartum room.
Postpartum. room. Yep.
Yep. And then I think we're in there for a little bit, and then now it's like Sunday, probably.
Now it's, by this point, it is now
because it's
Sunday.
after midnight. Yeah, so it's
Yes.
now Sunday. And
It's
then I
around-
have a lactation, or like the nurse helps me, and I think they're lactation certified.
First nurse
And
that
they
we see?
help me, huh?
The first nurse we see? Or
Or one of the nurses. I can't remember if it was the first one, but someone helped me start breastfeeding. I can't remember who.
let's say it was the first nurse.
Yeah, because it wasn't the lactation lady. They didn't
It's
come
around-
until the morning.
At this
so
point, it's around 2, or it's around like
it's way early
1:30 a.m. in the
'cause
morning.
It's dark. Yeah, because my mom
on-
had to go home.
Yeah, on Sunday. And they're taking us upstairs. We're in the postpartum room. And I believe it was the first nurse who explained how to do everything.
Yeah, she gave me like the basics of stuff,
Right.
but since it was so late, or like very very early, the actual lactation consultant people
Right.
weren't there. So I learned to breastfeed slightly. And I had told them, you have to let them know what your feeding preferences are, and I
Right.
said breastfeeding. But they also knew we were tired, so they did take him to the little nursery for a bit so that we can sleep. I slept for like a little bit until they brought him back, and they're like, he's hungry. I was like, oh my gosh, I'm so tired. And they come in so often to like check you, which I'm grateful for, like to make sure I'm not clotting or to make sure I'm not hemorrhaging or anything. So they're like pushing on my stomach to get my uterus to contract again. But I was so tired because I haven't eaten since like
You hadn't eaten.
Thursday.
You hadn't eaten since Thursday.
And yeah, I'm sorry. Yeah, Thursday lunchtime.
Thursday lunch.
And it's Sunday.
It's Sunday now. All you had was an
I have not
IV,
eaten.
water,
Yes.
ice cubes, and a little bit of an icy.
I didn't finish that icy.
That's all you had.
So I am starving and I'm so exhausted. And honestly, I think that's what made my recovery so difficult, was because I wasn't very nourished with like food. And also I had labored for like 30 hours. So
Yes.
all of that exhaustion, that's a lot of, wear on the body. So I think that's what made it so tough. But what was crazy was right when we get to the postpartum room, she's like, all right, you got to stand up. I was like, you're crazy. I think I looked at her like she was insane. I was like,
She asked you
what
to stand
do you mean?
after, and she asked you to stand up, and it's only been around 45 to 50 minutes after they finished the last stitch on your.
Yeah, it was not even an hour.
I don't think it was an hour yet. So they get up there and she asks you to stand.
I was like, you're crazy.
And
You
you
are
did it.
crazy.
You stood, and you
The
stood up.
power of like the mind when
Yeah.
you just have to.
You did. You stood and you held onto the side of the bed.
Yeah, I was like decided because you have no abs,
No, of
so
course
it's
not.
like you're just rolling, and someone has to hold you,
Yeah.
which is just wild. And I'm like,
you just leaned, and then you just laid back down.
yeah, I just stood up by the bed, and then I stood, and then the next time she came in, I had to walk around the bed, and then get back in. But I didn't like it, but it helps with blood clots.
Oh.
If you don't get up walking, you have a high risk of clotting.
Oh, okay. There's a reason for everything, so.
I mean, it sucks, but and I was definitely not happy with these people,
Right.
but they were doing something that was necessary. I think. I don't know. But
I'm not a doctor, so I
that's
don't
what
know.
the research said when
Right.
I looked it up later. That it's supposed like getting your body moving helps with the blood flow back to throughout your body.
That makes sense.
Yeah,
That makes sense.
so that it doesn't just sit there and clot, which can cause hemorrhaging. So yeah, I did that, but I think it was really hard, the whole postpartum. So I think like I only stay in the hospital for another day or two because I just wanted to be at home. But we ended up coming home fine, passing our tests and everything. He passed his hearing test, his vision test, he's like alert.
Yes.
We were struggling with feeding a bit, no, he was actually fine feeding in the hospital.
Yeah.
It's when we got home that
Right.
the feeding kind of took a turn. But so now we're home. Is there anything you want to ask about the hospital?
Last
Before I
thing
move
with the hospital is that we delivered him. So that's the 11th.
Yeah.
That was Saturday.
Yeah.
We go upstairs to the postpartum delivery room. That was Sunday early morning. We're in there for all day. We stay
Sunday.
all day Sunday. We stay one full night. So Sunday night, we decide to leave.
No, we stayed 2 nights.
That's right. We stayed 2
Yeah.
nights in postpartum.
I could have had 3 nights.
Could have
With
had
a
3.
C-section, you're typically given 3 nights.
Right. So we decided to stay. Incredibly difficult. We hadn't slept really at all still up to this point. So everything's a
I know
little.
you were like on that hard couch.
Yeah, that
Yeah.
couch was really, really tough. Everything's a little blurry. I remember trying to sleep and then someone barging in every
Yeah, it's
couple
like
of seconds.
right when you're like asleep, it's like,
Yeah,
it felt like seconds went
someone
by.
would barge in, and
Yeah.
at that point, we were sleep deprived. At that point,
So
and
sleep deprived.
I hadn't gone through that ever, and neither had you.
No.
So communicating was very difficult as well. Even explaining
In the
what we needed
hospital.
to the nurses or talking was
Yeah,
challenging.
just like speaking a regular sentence was
Yeah.
really difficult.
And then on the River didn't cry really at all until we got into the late in the second night. That's when he first started to cry.
Because I think that's what they say too. It's not the first night they're out, the second night. Because now they're aware that they're not in the womb anymore. And they
that's
are
when-
not happy about it.
And that's when that's when we had to,
That's when he went to the nursery,
Yeah.
right? Yeah.
At that point, we were so sleep deprived at that point that I couldn't even, I didn't want to let him go, but at
Well,
the same time,
I didn't know what was happening. I think I was so delirious that you're just all over the place. And then it's so difficult when you can't sit up. And like when you can't like do anything, I can't just get up out the bed and get him.
Right.
So that was hard too.
And that after letting the nurses take him to the nursery, we got to freshen up a little bit, and then you slept on the wheel,
bed,
the
yeah.
bed they wheeled you on. I slept on the couch that was there, and then I think it was only maybe 15 to 20 minutes, I think. And after that moment, that's when I decided that there's no need to stay again.
Well, I think we both decided because
Yeah, that's
it's
right.
like because I could have stayed.
That's right.
The extra
You
night.
didn't want to stay either.
But I did not want to stay
we couldn't
anymore because
sleep.
I couldn't do anything. Like they were just coming in and out so often that I was getting very irritated. And it
Right.
wasn't at them personally or anything that they're doing. They're just doing their job.
Yeah.
But I just wanted to be in my own bed, in my own home, with my own pajamas,
Right. Exactly.
just all of just my stuff on my couch.
Right.
And they had to check me before they cleared me first, though. So they were like, I wasn't clotting when they would do the pushes on my stomach.
That's
I
right.
could go to the bathroom on my own because they took the catheter out.
Yep, that's right. Yep.
To be fair, I kind of cheated that, but I ended up passing that test about going to the bathroom on
That's
your own.
right. That's right.
I took the bandage off. That was interesting. I think I cried taking the bandage off because it was I had finally seen okay, well, that actually happened. I actually got the surgery and now I have this scar. And also the bandage hurt kind of taking it off because it was
Yeah.
the sticky one.
Yep.
But it was sticky and some of the sticky was on my scar.
Mm-hmm.
So it was the skin around the scar is also very sensitive.
Right.
So that was difficult, but you have to take it off so that they can check you.
Right.
And I had the steri strips, those little
That's what they're
strips that
called.
keep them together
Yep.
on there. But they checked it. They actually said it looked really good. And I still get told that they're like, yep, your scar looks really nice.
Yeah.
They did a really great job on it, I will say.
Yeah.
So that was good, but it was still difficult. It was very jarring seeing it. But yeah, they clear us to go home, so we're able to go home.
Yep, so we were able to
and
go.
recover.
And last thing from the hospital was that we just sort of had a looser outfit for you to put on.
Yeah, I did not pack the right outfit.
Yeah, so other than that, that was it.
Yeah.
So
definitely wear something loose.
Yeah.
Flowy.
Yeah. And that was it at the end of that.
Because I think I packed the outfit not expecting I would have a C-section. So,
right.
Yeah, I'd say always prepare for the unexpected.
Yes.
But they were kind. We got free stuff like diapers and everything. I guess it's free. We paid for it. But then I'd say so now we're at home.
Now we're back.
Okay, so now it's my postpartum.
What up, 3 flights of steps? Because that's where we live. We live on the 3rd floor.
That was so hard.
So as soon as you get out the car.
Crazy. And then not to mention 2 days later we had to go to
out.
his pediatrician appointment. That's crazy. Those doctors should make the first pediatrician appointment home or virtual. Well, maybe not virtual, but like a home, appointment. Right. And I think if you go through like the more natural route, like a home birth midwife, I think they do that for you. But no, the regular medical field, they make you go 2 days after you have any sort of delivery, vaginal, C-section. Like, you do not need to be walking around 2 days later going to a doctor's office. But yeah, they give me this like survey of how I'm doing mentally, and I think the first time I do it, I say like I'm okay, but later is when the really intense feelings start to come, because I think when a woman gives birth, it's like the biggest hormone drop that any human experiences ever. Because you're taking all the hormones and all the stuff when you're pregnant, and then when you deliver, it's like a big drop. And given the circumstances of laboring for so long, emergency C-section, I think given the situation, I think that definitely took a toll on my mental well-being. We really also I struggled a lot with breastfeeding, which was something I really wanted to do, but I was so stressed out that it just wasn't working. The latching wasn't working. And then I would just get so sad and like honestly very frustrated if anybody brought River to me. I didn't want to hold him. I didn't want to see him. I would like hide in the closet because I didn't want to feed him. But then I also wanted to feed him. Like, I was upset that I couldn't do it. But then I also didn't want to do it because it hurt really bad. But yeah, I'd say it was a really, really dark time for me because I didn't get the labor that I wanted. And that was really hard to grapple with. And even though I labored fine, all of those prayers were answered. Even after the C-section, all of the prayers were answered. Like, the surgery went well. I didn't lose any blood. Everything was great. I just could not be okay with the fact that I had a C-section. Like, I feel like I was cheated out of an experience of, birthing and having the golden hour of him being on my chest, and I wanted like delayed cord clamping. I had like my whole birth plan, and to have it kind of like thrown out the window was really sad for me, and it just felt like I was experiencing my life outside of my own body, like an out-of-body experience. Like, I was looking at myself go through postpartum. It was very disconnected. And then I would look at like my body, and it just felt so deflated. It's not a cute baby bump anymore. There's no baby in there anymore. It's just like you, and it's like all squishy, and it just looks, you just don't really recognize yourself a whole lot anymore, and there's nothing. You have your baby now, but like, it's not like you can just go back to how you used to look instantly. And then, like, emotionally, you're still so tired because they wake up a lot, and we weren't really communicating that well because we were so tired, and we had just gone through the whole labor experience. You had just been sleeping on the hardest sofa, and it was just a lot. And we really struggled, I'd say, with like communicating.
Yeah. In the that first week or two, yes, that was challenging. Mainly just sleep. We weren't able to sleep, of course, which makes sense, but not sleeping really plays a huge impact on anything that you're doing. Whether you're you resting to try to recover from the pain, or just your brain trying to recover for the next day. But at the same time, we're both trying to make sure that our new baby
care for the baby
is alive and well.
Yeah, so and okay. And
those first 2 weeks
they're intense.
They're intense, yeah.
They are very intense because you basically had to take care of both of us.
Yeah.
Because
I'm glad your mom was there to help.
And my mom was there to help too.
Yeah, if she wouldn't have been there,
took care of all three of us.
That would have been challenging.
And
I had time off from work too.
Yeah, you had substantial amount of time off work.
Thank the Lord. For me, it was not as stressful as what some men go through. But
I didn't have to worry about you going back to work right away.
Yeah, I got to stay with you.
Which was also a blessing given the circumstances of labor. Having your time off was such a blessing. Mm-hmm. But yeah, my mom, she would cook for us, make us breakfast and juices and stuff. That really helped with my recovery, I think.
It did.
Having healthy meals. She juiced a lot of stuff, which helped a lot. But yeah, you basically had to take care of the both of us, me and River, without my mom. But
yes,
it was very, amazing of you. And
yeah, I'm happy to do what I'm called to do.
Yeah,
that was provide, protect, love, and it
was very giving to you, very selfless, and
thank you.
Yeah,
you too.
You encouraged me when I would feel really bad about like how I was looking, and you helped me like get in the shower, and because it was still hard to like step over into the tub, and you were just so gentle and caring, and I just think people should
after seeing everything you just went through.
But it helped a lot with knowing that you were on like my team, and I think people should really consider that when they're getting married and when they're picking someone to spend the rest of their life with, like when it's not so pretty, when you gotta change someone's diapers. You helped me with mine.
That's
and you helped with Rivers. Well, you did Rivers and stuff, and it's just very vulnerable. It's a very vulnerable time, especially as a woman, to be in that position. And yes, like you can rationalize, like I just birthed our child, and it should be like expected, but it's just different when you're in it. And it's like, well, even throughout the pregnancy when I would get like sick and stuff, you were just so caring. Wow. But it's just such a beautiful picture of like sacrificial love when you're going through something so hard. Mm-hmm. And then also encouraging me when I would feel bad, like when I couldn't really help that much or get up that quickly. That was really hard for me because I ended up having a very quick attachment to River of like, I need to get to him right this second. And I can't even hear anybody if he's crying. That's what was crazy. Like the whole brain chemistry changes. Mm-hmm. Like once he's crying, I'm tuning everybody out and I just need to get to River. Mm-hmm. And I need someone to bring me him like right this second.
Right.
And it would come out in like anger, and I would feel so bad because I would take it out on you when it was like all my whacked up emotions. And I'm like, well, he said she'd carry me. And then that would make me cry because then I feel bad because I'm angry, but I don't know why I'm angry.
It's okay. It's all a part of it.
Yeah, things just had to regulate because it ended up being fine like a few months later. But yeah. In that moment, I still really wrestled with it. And it took me a really long time to be okay with our birth story, because I would just grieve. I would listen to people's birth stories and how they were able to like push and, you know, get their baby immediately, and I would just always cry and listen to them, and I'm like, I wish I had that, I wish I had that. And then I remember sitting on the couch, and my mom was still here with us, and she had found this verse, and I had looked up just about every single verse about, you know, Rivers, because we were looking up his name. And she ended up sharing this verse with me, which was, I guess, the start of the whole redemption process of the story, because God really showed me so many moments of where he's visibly inserted with this process that helped me completely change my mindset on C-section deliveries. But let me just look it up really quick. John 7:38. Oh, yes, here it is. It was just a different version, but this is the King James version, and it said, "He that believeth on me, as the scripture hath said, out of his belly shall flow rivers of living water."
Look at that.
And when she read that, obviously I started crying, but it was just so true. His name was River before he got here, and that was the name we were going to choose based off of other verses. I didn't even see this one when I was looking. But the fact that it specifically said, out of his belly shall flow rivers of living water, it was just like, the whole plan was always for it to be a C-section.
Right.
Once God revealed what his name was going to be to us,
Right.
it was like the whole plan was always supposed to be a C-section, and I just didn't see it, and I didn't know that that's what that was going to be, because I had my own idea. And then later on, I ended up watching a podcast of a lady, and she referred to herself as, I'm a mom who has C-sections. And she just seemed so content with it, and I just was listening to it because I was very upset that I had a C-section.
Right.
And at this point still. And she is the one who mentioned it, that, you know, Jesus cares so much about moms and how you deliver, that yes, even though like a more like a vaginal birth was the original design for child labor, or laboring for your baby, that even though we have this new technology, new method of cesareans, he's still present and gracious enough to show us that he's still there with us. That, like you mentioned earlier, like even the position that you're laying on the table.
I think it must have been from her.
It was her, yeah. That was the only person I'd ever heard say this.
Yeah, she said that.
She said a few things too. She said, well, she started with that. She's like, even the position that you're laying it on the table is such, it's the exact same position of Christ on the cross. And that made me like break down, because I was like, oh my gosh, it was like, what an honor it is to be able to bring in my child to the world in the same way that Jesus sacrificed himself for us. And then she goes on to say, when he was on the cross, he gets his side pierced once he's dead. But even before, like, his whole sacrifice, when we take like the Lord's Supper, he's like, this is my body that I've broken for you. Like, I'm sacrificing myself, and I've got this scar, because he gets a scar on his hands, his feet, and then he gets pierced in his side. So he's got scars, and he keeps his scars. That's what was so amazing. I was like, he didn't have to keep his scars. When he resurrected, he was in a perfect body.
Yep.
And he didn't have to keep them.
Nope.
And so when you have a C-section, you're left with a scar. And it's like, you're basically not the exact same, but it's a symbol of like, well, this is my body that I'm breaking for my son to come into the world. And I get to have the honor of carrying a scar to remember his life starting out here in the world. And that was just such a beautiful reminder, and it was so touching. And she was like, think of how blessed you are to carry this scar. And it's like, your body tells, I think she said this, she's like, your body tells the story of your family as a woman. And it's like, that's such a beautiful, whether it's stretch marks or anything, but like for me it was a C-section scar. And it's like every time I get to, because I really didn't like it at first.
That's right.
I was like, I'm stuck with this scar, and I just felt like my body was broken in a bad way. But she's like, your scar gets to tell the story of your son coming into the world. And I was like, that's amazing. And then even finding out later that they're cutting through 7 layers of your skin.
That's right.
Like, it didn't have to be the number 7.
It didn't have to be 7.
It didn't have.
That came to us months later.
That came to us literally just a month ago.
Right. That they're cutting through 7
That
layers.
they cut through 7 layers of skin of your body.
Yeah.
And that's like God's number for completion.
It is 6, 7 days, 7 days.
7 days, 7 layers to bring your child into the world. And it was just such a beautiful reminder, and it completely changed my whole perspective on
Right.
how I labored.
It's almost as if cesarean sections are a gift from God
They can be.
because of how
Yeah.
many women died in child labor before.
I know, before this was an option. And I mean, I'm not saying that. I mean, I think any labor comes with risks. We live in a
course.
fallen world, and there are people who malpractice, and there are people, like, things happen that you just have no control over, and we don't know the answers to those things. I think it's just the ramifications of living in a world that is sinful, and with that comes horrible things and tragedies people have to endure.
Absolutely.
I do think that God can redeem any situation for his good, for those who love God and are called according to his purpose.
Yes.
And I think that's exactly what he did. And he had to let me go through those really tough moments in postpartum for me to really appreciate all of, like, the beautiful things that was just him showing himself in it. And I think the lady in the podcast said it, where she was like, I never felt as close to God as I do when I'm delivering our child. And I was like, after knowing all of these things, I felt very close to God, and seeing, like, how intimately he inserted himself in every part of it. Even, like, with River, like, my due date was the 8th.
Yes.
And he literally was born 3 days later.
3
like,
days later.
on the
8th.
11th.
That's right.
And, like, perfect timing.
Jesus
it's like,
took 3 days
yeah.
to come back.
So I just think that was also a beautiful little thing to mention. And he was born just under the wire on that 3rd day.
That's right.
And yeah, and he's the strongest, best little boy ever.
Yes. He started out well and healthy, but he did lose a lot of weight in the beginning. He got down to a lighter weight.
I think it was 6. I think that's normal though.
Oh,
that's
yeah.
not like him specific. It's normal for them to drop weight and then gain it again.
Drop the gain it. But now he's just, by the grace of God,
He's so healthy.
strong,
He's so
healthy,
strong.
never got sick.
Nope.
Just incredible. It
I don't
amazes
know what
us
it
every
is,
day.
But yeah,
Amazes us every day.
crazy.
He's awesome.
Like, literally, it's such a wild story, but, like, you would never know if you saw him.
Right. You never know.
Yeah.
You never know you had to, what you went through.
Yeah.
You described that wonderfully.
But thank you. You know, I had tried writing my birth story so many times because I thought that would be the best method, but it just never felt right. So I'm grateful that we got to talk about it.
Me too.
I think this method was better.
It was. Yeah. I just talking about it openly. Things come back to you
Yeah.
as they're talking about it. So.
And then you got to offer your perspective too.
Yeah.
If I had written it, I would have only had mine.
Yeah. I'm glad I got to chime in a little bit. I try not to take up too much.
No, I liked your perspective because there were
Okay.
things that you were going through too. I mean, it wasn't just me.
Right.
Well, it was me doing most of it, but like, I don't think people give husbands enough credit for what they
Oh,
have to take on when they see that their wives, especially that like helpless feeling of like, I can't do anything except the things that you can do, which is like,
Yeah.
making sure I'm comfortable, making sure I have water,
Yeah.
that, the nurses, like you were a big advocate for me and
Yeah.
you're a big advocate for River. And
Yeah.
that was also really important because I'm not really there when you're on the medications and stuff. So
Yeah.
making sure that you felt sturdy and confident enough, that takes a lot. Takes
Thank
a lot
you.
of strength, and I don't
appreciate
think people give husbands enough credit.
Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate that. I'm glad I could step up and step into that role. That really shifted me where I am today. That was a
Yeah.
defining moment in my life. I never went to the military or nothing like that. So,
I mean,
I did some
childbirth will do it.
sports, but that was definitely a defining
Yeah.
moment for me. So, yeah. But I think one other verse I wanted to mention, and this is just for
Yeah.
the babies out there, but for the gist of it is what the angels see when they look at babies. They see the face of the
I think it's in
Father.
Matthew.
Okay, so to close out your labor story and River's birth story, we have just a verse or two we wanted to share. So we have Matthew chapter 18, verse 10. See that you do not despise one of these little ones, for I tell you that in heaven their angels always see the face of my Father who is in heaven. And that is Jesus speaking there. So
Yeah,
for the
I really
babies out
like that
there.
verse. It helps you take it very seriously.
That's right. That's right. 'Cause
Yeah.
yes. So what did you have?
Mine was the Ecclesiastes one, Ecclesiastes 11:5, and it says, "As you do not know the way the Spirit comes to the bones in the womb of a woman with child, so you do not know the work of God who makes everything." And I really liked that verse.
Yeah.
Just like how intricately babies are made in the womb and how God just loves them. And how it's such a mystery to us, like how they, like it says, like how the Spirit comes to them, like how they become themselves,
Yes.
even in the womb. It's so amazing.
Yes.
Like he even had a personality during his sonograms.
He did.
And it's the exact same.
Same. It's the
Funny,
same.
a little mischievous.
Yeah.
And it's like carried on even now, and you can really see it come to life out here.
That's right.
But it was always there, and it's so sweet. And just like how we didn't know how that happened in
Right.
the womb, like it says like we don't know, so you do not know the work of God who makes everything. It's like even just the whole process of bringing him into the world, and
That's right.
I didn't know why it had to be that way or anything until later, and I still don't really know why, but I can have faith and look back on it fondly. Like seeing me smile about the whole process, if people were there with me, you would really think it was a big shock to see me smiling about my birth story now, because I would cry every day about it.
Right.
And be so angry and filled with like bitterness and like resent and comparison. But I'm just very grateful that God has allowed this to just be part of our testimony,
That's right.
my testimony personally about
Yes.
like, even though it might not go the way that you thought it was going to go, like God is still there and he can make it beautiful no
That's
matter
right.
what.
No matter what. Amen.
Yeah.
Amen. Okay.
I'm glad I made through that without crying.
I'm shocked.
Well, I'm almost
that-
there. I am feeling it a
That's
little
okay.
bit, but I think we're done.
That's all right. We closed out. Okay. I'm sorry. One last one.
Yeah.
Okay, one last one. You
I
did
mean,
a
she's
wonderful
such
job.
the best thing ever in my life.
One last one.
Well, both of you are.
Oh, you're amazing.
You've
both
given
are
me such a
incredible.
great gift.
You both are incredible. I'm happy. I'm just happy to be here.
And like, I don't know my life without being not being a mom.
Yeah.
He's the best thing in my whole little world.
And here we go. Psalm chapter 139, verse 13.
Oh, I love that one.
For you formed my inward parts. You knitted me together in my mother's womb. I praise you, for I am fearfully and wonderfully made. Wonderful are your works. My soul knows it very well. And it continues. It's beautiful.
Psalm 139 is such a beautiful
It continues
chapter.
on. And just God knew River.
Yeah.
Just where he is right now, where he's going to be.
Yeah.
Everything he's going to do, God already knows. And he knew him just as well. And he knew you just as well when you were in your mother's womb. Same thing for me. He knew what you were going to have to go through to allow River to be here. So,
yeah.
like you just said, it's just, he's always there. God's always there.
He makes all things beautiful.
Yes, he does. So, thank you for sharing that. I know that wasn't easy.
No, but I'm glad I got to share it
I'm
because
happy you did too.
now we have it.
Now we have it. And
And I feel like that was like the
somebody.
last part of this whole process.
Yeah.
I just really wanted it to be documented somewhere before we get many years down the line. And
Right.
I can't remember. So,
Exactly. Amen.
because it's so special and sweet. And yeah, now we have a beautiful baby boy.
Beautiful baby
Well,
boy.
big boy now. He's almost
I know, right?
one.
He big. Whew.
Yeah.
Almost 1 year old. My goodness.
He's
Well,
so sweet.
he may be waking up soon.
Oh, yeah.
So I guess we'll go
With that teething.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
We'll call it a night.